Hello, folks. Welcome back. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania. Now, this video is about President Trump and his obsession with Greenland. So you might be asking yourself, what does this have to do with South Africa? Well, specifically, the South African government has spent the past year spreading propaganda and disinformation, claiming that the United States has been aggressive towards South Africa. Well, the only concrete steps the United States has taken have been in response to actions or transgressions by the South African government. So I don't know what they're harping about. But they've been complaining for the past year the United States has been aggressive towards South Africa and claiming that they've been targeting South Africa. The only actions the United States is taking against South Africa in the past year that one might even raise an eyebrow are the exclusion of South Africa from the G20 meetings in the United States, with U.S. as the president of G20. And just this week, the United States Department of Justice stating that they had begun asset forfeiture proceedings against the Flying Academy South Africa for purportedly shipping mission training sets with U.S. defense technology to China illegally. Come to find out, apparently that shipment took place in 2023 and it was seized in early 2024. Whatever the case is, those are the only actions the United States has taken against South Africa. The argument the United States has been aggressive towards South Africa because it stopped giving money to South African non-government organizations is poppycock. It's our money. We have no obligation to give it to anybody. It's the generosity of Americans, and calling us aggressive because we don't give you money is really a bankrupt position to start from. So this is the situation. While South African politicians run around and try to spark conflict with the United States has been unbelievably patient in the face of numerous transgressions against the United States' national security and our interest, as well as our friends, partners, and allies. Meanwhile, Denmark, other than not doing its job and not defending the Arctic sea lanes and Greenland to the level it should do for decades and been a freeloader and free rider, Denmark has done nothing against the United States that I know of. However, President Trump is dead set on getting Greenland. Just a short while ago, President Trump released the following statement. We have subsidized Denmark and all the countries of the European Union and others for many years by not charging them tariffs or any other forms of remuneration. Well, and additionally, we've kept them from becoming Soviet client states for 70 years. Well, 60 years. We defended them and kept them free. Now, after centuries, it is time for Denmark to give back. World peace is at stake. China and Russia want Greenland, and there's not a thing that Denmark can do about it. They currently have 2 dog sleds as protection, one recently added. Well, they have a little more than that, President Trump, but they have an inadequate defense presence in Greenland. The entire Danish armed forces would need to be in Greenland just to make a dent in what's actually needed there. And then Denmark would be undefended. Who would stop the Germans from coming on holiday? Only the United States of America under President Donald J. Trump can play in this game, and very successfully at that. Nobody will touch this sacred piece of land, especially since the national security of the United States and the world at large is at stake. On top of everything else, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland have journeyed to Greenland for purposes unknown. This is a very dangerous situation for the safety, security, and survival of our planet. These countries, who are playing this very dangerous game, have put a level of risk in play that is not tenable or sustainable. Therefore, it is imperative that in order to protect global peace and security, strong measures be taken so that this potentially perilous situation end quickly and without question. Now, that's a little concerning. These are NATO allies, and the president is concerned about what they're doing in Greenland. I'm not particularly concerned. Apparently, I'm not read in on the current intelligence that's happening. What are these actors up to in Greenland? Are they there for minerals? Are they there to secure a spot? I don't know. Maybe President Trump knows more than we do because he has an intelligence community working for him. In response to this, President Trump says, starting on February 1st, 2026, all of the above-mentioned countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland, will be charged a 10% tariff on any and all goods sent to the United States of America. On June 1st, 2026, the tariff will be increased to 25%. This tariff will be due and payable until such time as the deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. Well, that's pretty steep. He's really using these tariffs as a geopolitical tool, as he did in Panama, as he's done with Denmark in the past, as he did with Colombia. The United States has been trying to do this transaction for over 150 years. Many presidents have tried, and for good reason, but Denmark has always refused. Now, because of the Golden Dome and modern-day weapon systems, both offensive and defensive, the need to acquire is especially important. Hundreds of billions of dollars are currently being spent on security programs having to do with the dome, including for the possible protection of Canada. And this very brilliant but highly complex system can only work at its maximal potential and efficiency because of angles, meets, and bounds, if this land is included in it. The United States is immediately open to negotiation with Denmark. So the president has laid out what's really going on here. People keep talking about, rare earth elements and minerals, which are going to be costly to mine in Greenland, and we don't even know if it's feasible. The real issue here, as I've said all along, is the threat from China and Russia. Now he's added a new angle to this. The Golden Dome and the full potential Golden Dome protect the airspace of North America, apparently depends on acquisition of Greenland. But we have a treaty that gives us access to do anything we want in Greenland military-wise with no taxes, no fees. So that's strange. The United States of America is immediately open to negotiation with Denmark and or any of these countries that have put so much at risk despite all that we have done for them, including maximum protection over the many decades. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. So for the South African politicians and the corrupt media in South Africa who keep screaming and whining and crying, America's aggressive towards South Africa, they keep abusing us. Now, it's not the United States that trained Chinese People's Liberation Army pilots to shoot down NATO aircraft. That was the South Africans. It's not the United States that sent barred military helicopters to a sanctioned warlord in Benghazi. That was the South African company. It's not the United States that sends mercenaries to fight in the illegal occupation of Ukraine for the Russians. That's South Africans. It's not the United States that failed to sign Article 98 waiver. That's South Africa. It's not the United States that imposed tariffs on South Africa. South Africa did that on our poultry, 70%, quotas on our automobiles, while Chinese and Indian vehicles flooded in the country unconstrained, and also banned our pork products, while we gave duty-free access to our country. It's South Africa that's taking these actions. It's not the United States that cozies up to the Iranian terror state. It's not the United States that cozies up to Cuba or Russia or North Korea or communist China. It's the government of South Africa under the ANC that does that. So before a South African politician or fake media outlet tries to tell you once again that the United States is being aggressive towards South Africa, remind them that in the scheme of things, South Africa doesn't matter to Donald Trump and the United States. They're paying virtually no attention to it, despite rhetoric in Congress calling South Africa, John Kennedy, our enemy, and Senator Risch, an adversary, and efforts to review the relationship in Congress and legislation with an eye towards sanctioning South African politicians or the country. President Trump isn't pushing any of that. Cyril Ramaphosa went to the White House and lied to Donald Trump, lied to him about what's happening in South Africa. Also, Cyril Ramaphosa has been particularly obnoxious and aggressive towards President Trump for years. I don't know what Donald Trump knows about South Africa, but he can keep his America. We'll keep our South Africa. Lying on Bloomberg News in 2018, there are no farm murders. And then this past year, first insulting Trump, saying, well, he doesn't know what's going on in South Africa. Then calling him a racist and calling him white supremacist. Your foreign minister calling him white supremacist. The actions are coming from South African politicians in the ANC, but not exclusively, and from your legacy media, not from the United States. Donald Trump's paying no attention to South Africa, virtually no attention to it whatsoever. So stop whining that you're getting aggressive action. Greenland can complain that the United States is being aggressive, but South Africa has no basis to make such a claim. The reason you weren't invited to G20 is because the abusive treatment you gave towards Argentinian and U.S. representatives in Sherpa and other meetings before the G20, and because of the egregious insult against American interests by calling our seasoned diplomat with 3 decades experience a junior official when he is the personal representative of the President of the United States, and you know that full well, as well as violating the Vienna Conventions, raiding a diplomatic activity, detaining U.S. officials illegally, and then doxing a U.S. official's passport. These are the egregious offenses you've taken against the United States. And the United States has done nothing. No sanctions, no embargoes, no bans on buying your bonds, nothing. In fact, this past week, the United States banned 75 countries' nationals from immigrating to America. 26 of them are African countries. But South Africa isn't one of them. So South Africans want to immigrate to America can still do that. Not refugee, immigrate. But not from many other countries in Africa. 26 to be exact, half the continent. So stop whining you're being singled out, because you're not being singled out. I think that politicians in South Africa want to be singled out. They want to be martyrs because somehow they think it buys them some kind of currency. Well, that's a fool's errand. Stop it. Grow up and act like adults. You're not being aggressively treated. You're not being singled out. When you whine about, well, they applied tariffs on South Africa. He applied tariffs on 90 countries because of their unfair trade practice against America. Tell the whole story, not the bullshit story you like to tell. What say you, South Africa? Zanzi. Cheers.